The sky gliders of Nova City. In the year 2157, Earth was a vastly different place. With much of the planet's surface abandoned due to rising oceans and desertification, humanity had taken to the skies. Floating cities drifted above the clouds, powered by immense solar sails and anti-gravity engines. Among them, Nova City shone brightest, a dazzling utopia of innovation and spectacle. But Nova City wasn't just known for its futuristic marvels. It was the birthplace of skygliding, the world's most thrilling sport. Skygliders raced through the air on hoverboards, leaping between floating platforms and performing acrobatic stunts, all while chasing aero crystals, floating orbs of pure energy. These crystals weren't just points in a game. They powered the very foundations of Nova City. To collect one was to claim a piece of the city's beating heart. 12-year-old Cale had spent his entire life dreaming of the skies. From his home in the outskirts, a crumbling district on the city's edge, he watched the skygliders perform, their trails of light painting the heavens. But Cale's reality was a far cry from the glamour of the gliders. The outskirts were a patchwork of rusted metal and forgotten dreams. Here people survived by scavenging, repairing drones, and trading scraps. Cale and his mother lived in a tiny workshop piled high with broken machines. His father, once a skilled mechanic, had disappeared years ago, leaving behind little more than a few tools and an old hoverboard. Cale spent his days repairing drones for customers, and his nights secretly working on his father's board. It was ancient by Nova City's standards. Its engine sputtered, its frame creaked, and its design was painfully outdated. But Cale loved it. To him it was more than a machine. It was a link to his father and a symbol of the life he longed for. One evening, as Cale sat on the roof of the workshop, staring at the stars, the city's holographic screens lit up with an announcement. "Attention, citizens of Nova City," boomed the voice of the announcer. "This weekend marks the Starburst Challenge, a once-in-a-lifetime event. A rare aerocrystal has been detected at the edge of the atmosphere. It's the largest ever recorded, radiating untapped energy. The first to claim it will earn the title of Skyglider Champion, and a place among the elite Skyglider League." Cale's heart leapt. The Starburst Challenge was legendary. Skygliders from all over the world would compete, their every move broadcast to millions. But it wasn't just the fame that drew Cale's attention, it was the aerocrystal. The crystal hovered higher than any before it, deep within the city's upper atmosphere. To reach it would require skill, courage, and a board capable of withstanding extreme conditions. Cale knew his chances were slim. His patched-up hoverboard was no match for the advanced machines of the professionals. But the thought of soaring through the skies, of proving himself to the world, burned brighter than his doubts. "I can do this," he whispered, his fingers tightening around the board's handlebars. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Cale worked tirelessly, scavenging parts from old drones and upgrading the board's engine. He installed stabilizers to handle high-altitude winds, reinforced the frame with lightweight alloys, and even added a makeshift energy booster. By the time he finished, the board looked more like a work of art than a relic. On the morning of the challenge, Cale arrived at the launch platform, his heart pounding. The other competitors towered over him, their sleek uniforms and cutting-edge hoverboards gleaming in the sunlight. Cale's patched-up outfit and homemade board drew stares and whispers. "Hey kid," one of the professionals sneered. "You lost? This isn't a playground." Cale ignored them, his eyes fixed on the glowing aerocrystal high above. The starting signal blared, and the skygliders shot into the air. The professionals moved with precision, their boards humming with power. Cale followed, his board sputtering slightly before stabilizing. As the gliders raced toward the first set of aerocrystals, Cale noticed something they didn't. A narrow gap between the floating platforms that led to a shortcut. While the others took the long route, Cale slipped through the gap, his smaller size giving him an advantage. By the time they realized, Cale had already collected several crystals. "Where did that kid come from?" one of the competitors growled. But Cale wasn't focused on them. He was thinking about his father, about the nights they had spent together dreaming of the skies. He couldn't let this chance slip away. The higher they climbed, the tougher the challenge became. The wind grew stronger, and the platforms grew farther apart. One by one, competitors began to drop out, their boards unable to handle the strain. Cale's board wobbled dangerously, but he held firm. His upgrades were working just barely. As he climbed, he noticed the professionals struggling with the high-altitude winds. Their boards, designed for speed rather than durability, faltered. This is it, Cale thought. The final stretch loomed ahead. The Starburst crystal, glowing like a second sun. It pulsed with energy, surrounded by swirling currents of wind and debris. Reaching it would require perfect timing and nerves of steel. Cale took a deep breath and launched himself into the storm. The wind tore at him, threatening to knock him off balance. Sparks flew from his board as it strained against the forces around it. But Cale didn't give up. He remembered his father's advice. "Machines are like people, Cale. Treat them with care, and they'll take care of you." Adjusting the controls with precision, Cale guided the board through the turbulence. With a final surge of energy, he reached the crystal. It floated just beyond his grasp, its light reflecting in his wide eyes. Summoning every ounce of strength, Cale leapt from his board, his hand closing around the crystal. The crowd erupted into cheers as Cale's name lit up the city's screens. He had done it. Against all odds, he had claimed the starburst crystal and secured his place in history. From that day on, Cale was no longer just a boy from the outskirts. He was a skyglider, a symbol of hope for dreamers everywhere. And as he soared through the skies of Nova City, the crystal glowing at his side, he knew one thing for certain. His journey was only just beginning.